Okay, in this video, we're going to look at a case control study, and then we're going to compute an odds ratio. A case control study starts with some outcome variable. In this problem, we're looking at people who were with the company, but they're no longer with the company. They have churned, or they've left, or turned over, however you want to put it. They're no longer our customer. So we look at these 100 people who churned. Those are our cases. And in addition to the 100 that churned, we look at another group, that is 100 people who stayed. So we start again with our outcome variable, whether or not they stayed with the company. Then we're going to look back in our records and look at some variable we think might have an effect on whether or not people left. And in this case, we're looking at, had they contacted technical support at least 2 times in the past year. So in this first group, our cases, we had 100 cases, and of those, 25 had been on the phone or wherever with technical support at least 2 times in the last year. Then we had 100 in our control group, and of those, 10 had contacted technical support at least 2 times in the last year. So now I'm going to just organize all of that into a table. On the top here, our outcome, so they either churned or they didn't. And we started with 100 that did, those were our cases, and then 100 who did not, those are our controls. Then we had some variable over here. This is the exposure, is what it's usually or sometimes called. You could call it an explanatory variable. You could call this the response variable or outcome variable. And then this is frequently called the exposure, because this comes out of this idea of odds ratio and relative risk stuff that we'll be talking about for a while. A lot of it came from the medical literature, epidemiology. So anyway, exposure or explanatory variable would be another good choice to say what this is. But anyway, it's on the left-hand side here. And so now we're looking at, did they contact technical support at least 2 times in the past year? Remember, of those that churned, we said it was 25, and of those who didn't, it was 10. And then we can just fill in, if they didn't contact, 75 churned and 90 did not. So we just fill these in by subtraction. Okay, so up in the left-hand side, I have the same thing, just a reproducing of the table. And so for the people who said yes, for these people, the people who had contacted customer service, the odds of churn were 25 divided by 10. So if they had contacted technical support, the odds are 2.5 to 1 that they left, they churned. By contrast, for the people who did not contact technical support, the odds were 75 to 90. Those who did divided by those who didn't. Those who did, those who didn't. So now we have the odds ratios for each of our 2 levels of exposure or explanatory variable. We've got the odds for each group. The odds ratio, which is pretty much what it sounds like, I think, is just the ratio of those. 2.5 divided by 8.3, and that gives us 3. So what that means is that for the people who did contact technical support, the odds that they would leave are 3 times as great as the odds for someone who did not contact technical support. And we can't say that this is a causal relationship, because there could be other factors here that affect both things. Maybe people who are prone to complaining are both more likely to contact technical support and to leave. So we can't make a causal relationship, but we can say that's big enough for us to pay attention to. If the odds in one group of churning are 3 times what they are for another group. And so if we're trying to retain customers, maybe we provide some incentive for these people to stay. Maybe $10 off your next bill or something like that. wanted to show you one more thing, and that is just a shortcut calculation for odds ratio. To be honest with you, might be better off doing it the way I already said, but you'll see this, and from a calculation standpoint, it might be easier. You have to memorize it, but still could save you some time for calculation. So let me move these things off of here. And I'm going to start with labeling the cells of this table as A, B, C, and D. So if you do that, basically what we're doing here is taking, it's called cross multiplying. You take the product of A and D and divide it by the product of C and D. I mean, sorry, B and C. And I think I've got that one right here. So 25 times 90 divided by 10 by 75. Now that does assume that you have the table set up like I have it here. You have on the outcome on the top, and on the side you have the exposure, and then just like I have it here. Sometimes they'll write this as a null, that we don't have the exposure and not have the outcome on the outsides there. And of course then yes and yes, you have the outcome and the exposure. And that'll be it for this video.